Kevin's pain was so bad. It ripped like it sounded like it ripped his tricep off his arm when it went through his arm and then into his chest. They tried to clean his wounds, night after night after night. That got so bad he pleaded with Randy later on, "Hey, just kill me."
Really?
Kill me. And Sarah's in the middle of the night hearing all this. Can you imagine I'll tell you more about Sarah after this, towards the end of the podcast. But the amount of trauma this girl is dealing with in such a short amount of time. And now she's hearing her family friend beg and plead for her dad to put him out of his misery. And she remembers hearing his dad just getting so quiet. You could hear a pin drop, and her thinking to her, pleading like internally, "Dad, don't do it, don't do this," because his dad's really thinking about killing his best friend. And after a couple seconds of thinking about it, he tells him, "No, if you want to do it, you have to do it yourself."
Oh, Randy says that to him?
Yeah, that's what Randy says to Kevin. Bad as things are getting up here on the mountain.
Morale is down.
Morale is down at an all-time low. The base of the mountain, which they're headquartered at, the feds are headquartered at, is just a completely different story. The base of the mountain is fairly it's hectic, but it's just a circus going on down there of just pulling in reinforcements. They end up having 500 personnel down there, but they're so detached about what's really going on inside that house. They're just it looks like they're loading up for war down there. Military vehicles come in, tanks, Humvees, helicopters, tents, media. It's just an absolute circus.
What do you think the decision was to bring in tanks and all this stuff? Like what you got? They might not know that they're dealing with 3 people, but I mean, even a handful of people.
Right. A couple of armored personnel carriers. I get that. So and they used them at times to go up there and try to talk to them and discuss. They used it once to bring, I believe it was Randy's sister, because Sarah calls it her aunt. I don't remember if she ends up saying it was her aunt or it could have been Randy's aunt, but a close family relative, and they brought her up in a armored personnel carrier to try to plead with Randy. The diesel was so loud and her voice didn't carry very well. Neither one could hear each other, and it was a complete disaster. No communication was done. They had to bring her back off the mountain because they weren't getting anywhere with it. They had no idea down in the mountain they were preparing for war. Down there at the mountain, they have no idea war has already happened up on the mountain and to its scale. It's just a tale of 2 different cities almost. News of Sam's death was properly identified by the FBI and released to the news and sent protesters into a frenzy. Mm-hmm. The town just descended on them, calling them baby killers, signs everywhere, people, yelling in their faces, those guys having to stay on the line. And I'm pretty sure those guys who thought they were coming up here to take vengeance on a cop killer are thinking, dang, we didn't come up here to kill a kid. Like that'd take, now morale's down on both sides.
Yeah.
And it only gets worse from there. Vicky's already dead, and nobody knows it. If there haven't been enough missteps on the government's part, the most embarrassing and inflammatory mistake is about to begin. Every morning, they decide to plead with Vicky, the mother, the nurturing part of the family. Maybe we can talk some sense into her. And with loudspeakers, they plead with Vicky to come outside, and they ask Vicky to come out with her kids and enjoy pancakes that they've made fresh just for them, unknowing they are pleading to a dead mother. Meanwhile, the Weavers feel that they are being taunted by a heartless government and infuriates them even more with each morning.
I mean, even if she was still alive, what the fuck are pancakes going to bring people out? Like, well, we just did all this, but I am a sucker for some pancakes.
So I think they're pulling at straws at this point. And this is where I want to say I know that they didn't think they hit anyone, and sure as heck didn't know they killed their mother. So they still don't know that that Kevin's been hit at this point yet either. So if you think for a second a sniper is going to come back and say, "Hey, I got a hit. I hit him on the way in." Heck yeah, I did. That's something you brag about, or you can call it reporting on, but you brag about, and these guys would have. So they didn't say
being
that.
able to identify that is bringing in your expertise to the profession is like that is how it would happen.
So they didn't report that, and they sure as heck didn't report that they killed the mother, because they would have never let the negotiators move along with a plan of basically taunting them about their dead mother.
Well, I mean, you would think so, but look at Waco. At Waco, they ran over the bodies of their comrades on purpose. They blasted the psychological warfare with the music. I mean, I would hope to God that they wouldn't do that, but
that's a level of evil that deliberate evil.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of missteps here, but none of them are deliberate. They're all kind of reactionary, if you will. That would be deliberate evil that I would like to believe the government does not possess. And when I say the government, I'm talking about our law enforcement does not possess. Because now you're saying that those guys on the ground, those fathers and husbands, and Americans, that police officers would have known that and be like, nah, full send. Yeah. I have a hard time believing that. So now the mistrust is an all-time high, and there's no methods of communication that were successful. So they tried dropping off a cell phone on the porch with a robot and using the local radio station, which they believed they were listening to, and they were correct, to plead with Randy to pick up the phone, and he could walk outside and get it, would not be hurt. Obviously, all trust was gone, and no communication was made. When I hear Sarah tell this story, that robot had two things on it: an arm to drop off the cell phone. You know what else it had on it?
No.
A shotgun rigged to it. And the shotgun was pointing at the house. And they're like, hey, come on out. Pick up the cell phone. We won't hurt you.
Holy shit.
And they've already killed their son, and they've already killed their mom, and they've already shot their best friend.
Because a robot doesn't need self-defense. If a human was going up there with a gun to throw a phone, that'd be different. You could argue, like, I have this gun in case they come out shooting at me. But a fucking robot?
That is according to Sarah herself on the ground. So I have to believe it. The only, out of all the things they did wrong, which is pretty much everything they've attempted so far, this is the one thing they got right. They knew they needed some help negotiating, that their trust is gone. So like they're not going to be able to do this. Like, hey, is there a third party we can bring in that could maybe bridge this gap for us? Enter Bo Greitz. Apparently, at the time, the early '90s, he was a well-known personality. He was a former Green Beret. He was a Green Beret officer. He had political ambitions. I think he was a third-party presidential candidate. He was well-known. Bo Greitz shows up. He drives to the house, gets driven to the house, gets dropped off, and he walks up about 20 steps away from the house, unarmed and in the open, and yells, "This is Bo Greitz. Randy, I want to talk to you." That is a ballsy move for this guy, just to show up and be like, they won't shoot me. I'm just going to show up there and yell at them. Like, these guys have been through the worst, and to think that you can just show up and be like, nah, they won't shoot me. I got it. Randy yells back, "Is that you, Bo?" So he knows exactly. So he was,
did they know each other, or did he just know who Bo was?
He knew who Bo was.
Okay.
Yep. So, which is a good sign. He obviously knows him, and just by the way they're talking, respects him. And the first thing he tells Bo is this: they killed Vicky. They killed my wife, Vicky. They end up talking for an hour. No one really knows what they talked about for that hour outside of Bo. And then when Bo comes off the mountain, he heads to the Fed's headquarters. And the first thing he says in the Fed's headquarters is, "Boys, you really messed this one up." And then he informs them that they had killed Vicky on day 2, and she has been lying dead in the kitchen this whole time. And I'm sure you could hear the slow moan get released from every single Fed in that room as they immediately thought back to their morning pleas with Vicky over the loudspeaker every day to come out for pancakes. The town and country is absolutely shocked at this news. And the way the story gets covered starts the change. So the media before this is, anti-government hillbillies in the woods, terrorists held up in their fortress. Their fortress was literally made out of plywood and, and 4x4s that Vicky and Randy built themselves. It was no fortress. And now they get the kind of the heart of America, and the news start getting really soft on them. And so now the feds have lost the news support. Bo comes back the following day and pleads to take Kevin down the mountain and to take him to higher care. Randy agrees, and that saves Kevin's life. Bo returns the same day with a body bag for Vicky. The emotionally distraught family watched as Bo carries his dead wife and their dead mother out in a body bag. Bo comes back the next day, and Randy informs him that he and the girls prayed all night and they aren't coming off the mountain. Bo Greitz and Randy have what I would refer to as a cordial but upfront conversation with each other, where as soon as he says, but we're not coming off the mountain, we prayed about it all night, Bo Greitz goes, Randy, damn you, how dare you, you're going to kill your whole family, and for what? And they get into this kind of shouting match, this respectful shouting match back at each other, and he wins and talks Randy off the mountain. Randy gives in. They walk into cars waiting on him, and they come off the mountain. What is one of the American government's greatest debacle of a domestic response of the century is finally over. But we'll have to wait to see if the court system makes it worse or tries to start the mending process. In 1993, Kevin and Randy were tried for first-degree murder for the death of U.S. Marshal William Deegan. After the state's longest jury deliberation, they were found not guilty. The only thing he was found guilty of, eventually through all the court trials and cases, he spends about a year in jail, going through all the different legal system. He gets found guilty of missing his court date. That's all I got found guilty of.
We got him, boys.
Yeah. Good.
They had to. That was the original. That's what started all of this.
Gosh. And of course he got time served, Yeah. A few years later, they successfully sued the U.S. government for the wrongful deaths of Sam and Vicky and were awarded $3.1 million. I translated that into today's terms. That's a little over $6 million in today's terms, where the government literally murdered two innocent people of your family, and they get $6 million. Randy Weaver died May 11th, 2022. It's just a few years ago. He was sick for almost a month, but no cause of death was given that I could find. Sarah Weaver is an absolute gem of a person. If you watch her give interviews to this, there's no way you would think someone who went through that could ever be a normal person. She's given several interviews about the incident. After 10 years of darkness following the incident and being unafraid to laugh out of fear of betraying the family's memory, that's for 10 years. She was scared to laugh just because she felt bad about it. She's found peace and forgiveness in what seems like an impossible situation. She's found Christ, and the forgiveness she has for the feds is just, I don't know how else to say it, like that only God can give a person.
Yeah, that's true.
It's amazing.
You don't have the capability as a person. You can't. Essentially you're an animal.
Yeah.